Most sales reps are lousy at selling to executives. It is painful to watch. I'm sure you've seen it before, maybe even been there yourself before. I've seen it 1,000 times. My name is Mike Gamson, and for the last 10 years, I've been heading up sales at LinkedIn. I want to share with you a tool set, my game plan, that can make you confident enough to win when you're selling to executives. Let's get started. Every year around the world, something amazing happens. Accounts are distributed to sales reps. Sales reps unwrap that package to find out if they can have a good year or a bad year, and they begin to prioritize their pursuit. Once those accounts have been prioritized, then the real work begins. Who am I going to go after first? How am I going to get in? What am I going to say when I get there? Will they engage with me, and how do I lock them down to next steps? That's what we're going to explore right now, and let's get started with learning how to identify who the right executive is to begin. The first step is to learn the internal landscape. You want to become an expert about who's who, what do they do, where do they live, and what do they care about. Use Sales Navigator to save the lead and to begin to get educated about your prospect. The next step, and this is something where people can often fall into a trap, don't be deceived by hierarchy. Oftentimes, a less experienced sales rep will just try to find the most senior person that she can find. What I would caution you on there, though, if you go too high, the CEO, for an example, you may find that she doesn't care about what you're trying to sell. So my advice here is to find that efficient frontier between a high-powered person who can make an autonomous decision on your behalf and someone who cares enough about what it is that you're there to do to get into alignment with you. The next step is to learn the 30,000-foot view. It's time for you to become an expert on what this company cares about so that you can drill that into what your prospect is going to care about. So actually do the work. Read their earnings announcements. Listen to those earnings calls. Read what's written at the highest level of the company. Learn the 30,000-foot view. The next step is to get much more intimate about what that executive in particular is up to. Follow them on social media. Make sure that you're engaging with their engagement on everything that's possible. Are there topics that they care about? Are there interests that they have that you can become more educated about? Next, find some junior employees who might be more interested in talking to you. It's often really hard to do research on an executive because the people immediately around her are also pressed for time, may have no interest in talking to you whatsoever. But oftentimes you can learn a lot from people who aren't necessarily hierarchically empowered. Maybe it's an assistant, a chief of staff. Maybe it's a junior person in the organization that has nothing to do with what your prospect executive does, but who just knows what's going on and who makes decisions. Now, finally, it's time to make a call. You've done your research. You understand the landscape. You have a good idea of who's who, and now you got to make a decision. Pick your ideal executive, and then maybe pick a backup plan in case your ideal executive doesn't want to engage with you or simply can't on a time frame that works for you. So you've identified the executive that you want to meet with. Now it's time to get the meeting, which is not easy. So remember that going in warm is always better than going in cold. If you have an existing relationship, someone that you are connected to inside of the company, of course you start there. But for many of us, that's not a path, that's an option. So what do? Well, I would start with looking in Sales Navigator and look at the team link function to see who on your team or in your company might be connected to someone directly inside of that company. Then you can leverage the relationship that you have and you can ask for an introduction. An executive is many more times more likely to accept an introduction when that intro comes from someone she knows. Speaking in my own life, I get so many cold outreaches during the day, I'm not going to respond to any of them. But if someone I know says, Mike, you need to meet this person, of course I'm going to take the intro. So go in warm when you can. If you're lucky enough to have an executive in your own company who's connected to someone in your prospect company, that's a relationship that you do want to leverage, but you really have to be thoughtful about it. Because engaging with one of your executives is almost as tricky as engaging with a prospect executive. And it depends a lot on the company culture that you have. Some companies, it's expected that your executive will do everything that she can to help you get into your prospect company. But in other companies, you got to work a little harder, and you may not find total alignment within that. So bring those same skills and those same practices that you would in engaging with an external executive to getting your internal executive on board. Figure out something that matters to her. Help her understand that this is in the prospect's best interest. It's not something you're trying to take, it's something you're trying to give. Make it really easy for her, and you'll get engagement. If you've exhausted all possibilities of going in warm, which happens sometimes, if you're going to go in cold, go in custom. Do not write one of those form letters that inserts your prospect's name on a whole bunch of language that no one's ever going to read. Put in the time. Respect your prospect with your homework. Write something that's completely custom, that takes her needs into mind, and recognize you've got about 3 to 5 seconds to gain her interest and her attention. If you can't make your point in there, it's going to go away. So be very thoughtful. What are you including in that? What's her subject line? Can you reference something that she's written, said, talked about publicly? Can you offer a piece of value? Maybe something about her competition. Maybe something that would make her want to read on. And if she does, in that email that you've written or that email that you've written, you've got about 1 to 2 more sentences to get to your call to action. Next, if all that good work didn't pan out, here's an idea for a Hail Mary. I open every FedEx that I receive. Sometimes it's junk, sometimes it's valuable, but I open every single one. That same thoughtful email message that you sent to the exec, or that email, maybe she didn't open it. Maybe it was perfectly crafted and you offered all of your value, but she just never opened it. Print it out, put it into a FedEx, and send it to her. She'll open it. Whether she'll act on it or not, depends on the work you put into it. Congratulations, your executive prospect agreed to meet with you. That's exciting, but now the work starts. It's time to prepare for the meeting. So the first step is to do your homework, and I mean really do your homework. Not like you did your homework when you didn't care about it at some point in school, like your job depends on it, because by the way, it does. So become an incredible expert on all things related to this company and this executive, but specifically, look for pieces of information that might be able to accelerate a natural relationship formed between you two. Did you grow up in the same area? Did you go to the same schools? Did you maybe care about the same teams? Was there a shared work history in any of the companies that she worked or that you worked? You're looking for tidbits of information that can give you an opportunity to start that relationship with some positive momentum. Next, you want to build on the fact that you are an expert in all things her and all things her company, so learn her organization. Know every one of the names of her peers and her direct reports. Know what they do, so that in the conversation in the meeting, you can, without effort, move between people and ideas as if you were part of her team. You're trying to convey the feeling that you're already on the team, you're already aligned, you're already working toward shared purpose. And then you want to make sure that you know everything about the history of your two companies working together in the past, because remember, you're not the first rep to try this account. There may be something that went well or that went poorly. You need to know about it. She may know about it, and you don't want her to know anything that you don't know about your shared history. And you also want to become an expert on her work history. What was she doing before she got here? What's her background and experience? Was she at a company that used her solutions before? Did they use a competitor's solution? You want to try to get to an inference of the bias that she may have about her likelihood to engage with your conversation or not. This next piece of advice should go without saying, but I'm going to say it because I've observed enough sales reps in my history to know it's worth saying. Know your own solution cold. You have time to prepare. You need to become literally the world's biggest expert on what your solution does for her business. Take the time, review everything about your solution, know every detail. Make sure there's literally nothing that can be brought up that you would be uncomfortable answering or that you would hesitate with. And building on that, across all of this information and preparing for this big, big meeting, there's something that I learned many years ago that has stuck with me. One of my mentors said to me, Mike, amateurs practice until they make the shot. Pros practice until they can't miss. What that means is oftentimes we stop practicing when we think, okay, I just did it. I've got it. but a real pro, a pro rep, a pro athlete, a pro musician. They keep practicing and practicing and practicing until there's literally nothing that can happen that can make them miss. So be that pro in your preparation and practice this until you literally cannot miss. You've prepped for your meeting for weeks. The day's finally here. You've just gotten off the airplane or the drive. You've walked up. You're in the lobby of her building. It's time to mentally prepare. Every great athlete, performer, musician, anyone who performs at the highest level has a pregame ritual, and you should have one too. You want to put yourself in a situation where you have the appropriate mindset to maximize all the hard work that you've done getting up to now. So I like to start by visualizing what I want to happen in this meeting, literally. And I run through it in my mind. I want to think about what might she say when I say what I'm going to say. How do I think about my objection handling? I want to flip through in my mind all the examples I may want to use of customers like her that have already achieved the benefits that she wants to achieve. I want to think about literally anything that might come up that could derail the meeting, and I want to remind myself that I know these answers and that I'm ready to give them in a way that will make her feel confident in my ability to solve her problems. Next, I want to take a minute and just be compassionate about her. Compassion is when you put yourself in someone else's shoes and you try to think about what the world looks like through her eyes. What's she doing right now? I'm one meeting out of a long list of meetings. She did not wake up this morning and say, I'm so excited to meet with Mike. This is going to be an amazing sales presentation. My guess is she didn't say that, even though that's what I was thinking about my day. So recognize that you have a gap in your run-up to this moment. What's she doing right now? Is she in a meeting with her CEO? Is she running from one thing to another? Is she answering emails? Just put yourself in that context so that when you meet physically, you can meet mentally. And lastly, as you're taking those final steps into the lobby, you're pressing the elevator button and you're going up, remember to just relax. You've been here 100 times before. You want to put her at ease, and she will be consciously and unconsciously resonating with your body language and your energy. If you walk in and you're over-caffeinated and you're jittery and you're shuffling all the things around on your desk in front of her, that's going to put her into a mental state that is not conducive for your forward progress. So just take a deep breath. Remember that you're going to kill this and get up that elevator. The meeting time has finally come, and you are ready to run this meeting. Your goal is to earn the trust and respect of this executive and to gain her buy-in for the forward progress that you want to achieve. How you do that is going to be a series of very subtle moves and subtle thought processes that, when linked together, become something very, very powerful. Start with the small talk on your way in. Don't take too long on the small talk. It's important, it's casual, everyone's finding their places and sitting down. It's very natural, but don't let it extend too far. You're on a time clock, and it's yours to manage. Next, think about where you're sitting at the table. Empower yourself with that seat choice. Make sure that you've got great eye contact with the executive and that you're in a position where you feel comfortable. Think about what's in front of you at that table. Most folks don't. But I would bet the last time that you met with an executive, there was almost nothing in front of her. There wasn't a stack of presentations, there wasn't a laptop. Maybe there was a notebook and a pen. Your job is to come across as a peer, not as a subordinate. So if you put a laptop and a stack of presentations in front of you, which are your weapons to remember what to talk about, you're denigrating your position relative to her unnecessarily. Keep that stuff in your bag. If you need backup material and you need to show a presentation, you're ready. That's great. But don't start that way. You want to start as peers. On the same thought of being a peer, don't over-apologize for the amount of time you're taking of hers. I've seen countless reps open meetings with a obsequious, thank you so much for all the time that you've given us. I know how busy you are. When you say that, what you're saying is, I'm not busy, my time's not valuable, and yours is. Completely unnecessary. Your time is valuable. You're an expert, and she needs your expertise. She has a problem, and you're going to solve it, and you're the best at what you do. Respect yourself by showing her that you respect your time. It's great to thank someone for their time, but just don't go over the top. Be natural about it. You've picked your spot at the table, you feel good, you've established yourself as a peer. Now it's time to take control of the meeting. Be the person who moves from small talk to objective setting. Don't let someone else around the table take that power away from you. Whoever sets the objective of the meeting is now in control of the meeting. And it gives you the opportunity, once you've set your objective, to check in with her. Make sure you're aligned. Are we here for the same reason? Is there maybe a surprise coming, which sometimes happens? And you want to find that out in the beginning of the meeting, not after you've burned 30 minutes. Once you have control of the meeting, the rest of this is yours. Think about the meeting not as a pitch or as a presentation, but as a conversation. As an executive, when I engage with a peer, no one's ever breaking out a presentation and walking me through slide 1 through 26. We have a conversation. We engage with each other. We're thoughtfully engaged in a series of points and counterpoints, as you do with your colleagues. That's the dynamic that you want to create that will unconsciously put this executive at ease that you are her peer. This is what she does all day long with the rest of her executive team, and you want to mimic that pattern. She works with her subordinates differently. They come in and they pitch to her. They break out that presentation. You want to be in Group A, not in Group B, relative to that. One of the ways that you can really reinforce that is don't go over the top dumping data on her. A lot of times we get so excited about what we know and how we can help them that we want to tell them 20 ideas. Here's 20 big data points. Be selective. Use your insights thoughtfully. Pick 1 or 2 things that you think she might remember. Because remember, the value of the conversation is not what we put in, it's what she takes out. It's all about that pull-through. And so if you overdo it on data points, there's just no way that she's going to remember. So 1 or 2 selective points. And if you need to go further and use a visual image, before you reach for that PowerPoint slide and you slide it over to her, I'd encourage you to think about something different. There's a model that we all are used to unconsciously from being in school. When you were a kid, you sat in a class, the teacher was at the board. There was a power differential between you. If you pick up a marker and you go to the whiteboard in a room with an executive, you are suddenly in charge. You are mimicking the dynamic between a teacher and a student, and you're the teacher. That's where you want to be. So imagine drawing a picture of the insight you want to share. Imagine using that dynamic to further the point you make and to further the relationship that you want to have. So the meeting's flowing well, you've nailed all the subtleties, and you've realized you only have 10 minutes left. This is where you want to make sure that you're managing the clock thoughtfully. You want to go back to the original objectives that you set up in the meeting and that you had checked in with her on to make sure they were her objectives as well. And you want to remind her we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to make sure that I respect your time and that we meet the objectives that we set out together. Just that check-in is a great tool for bringing the conversation back in case it's drifted, because sometimes at minute 30 or minute 45, the conversation can drift naturally. You're bringing it back, you're reinforcing that you're in charge, and you're making sure that the objectives are met. And then last, time to lock down some action items. This is where it's so important. You are able to gain the buy-in on what you were there to do. Make sure that you have very specifically delineated set of things, not too many, 1 or 2, 3 if you absolutely have to, that are going to happen next, that you've got a name of a person who owns it, and most importantly, that she's given you her buy-in to continue to be engaged. When you take control of the meeting, good things can happen. I remember once I was working with a rep who was in the biggest deal of his life. He couldn't get to the executive that he wanted to reach, and he asked me to engage. He did all the right steps and helped me with an outreach to his prospect executive. She was a senior executive at one of the largest professional services firms in the world. When the meeting day finally came, it would have been easy for him to sit in the background and let me and his prospect engage and take over the meeting. But that's not what he did. He empowered himself. He remembered that I was just an actor in his play. He directed my activities. He literally told me what he wanted me to say. And he made sure that his objectives were met. I felt comfortable in his control. He rose in my estimation as a result of that. and the meeting was very successful. Remember to take control, and even when your executives are there, don't defer to their hierarchy. This is your meeting, your opportunity, and your moment. Great job nailing that meeting with your target executive. You were fantastic. Now it's time to channel all that momentum that you've created into a series of steps that are going to move your deal forward. You are an all-time high in mind share with your executive. She's never thought more about you than right now. You've got a short window of time to take a few steps to take that mind share and convert it into actions that are beneficial to your process. The first step I recommend taking is sending a note. Seems pretty obvious, but not everyone does it. You just want to make sure that you thank her for her time, that you let her know that you're on the action items, and that you appreciated the conversation. I recommend starting with a connection request over LinkedIn. It's a great step, it's easy, and it's something she's probably in the flow of accepting already. You could also follow up with an email or an in-mail, but it's nice to get that dialogue started, and I recommend doing it the same day the meeting happened. You want to really make sure that you can strike while the iron's hot. Next, when you have a minute to process the notes of this deal and you're in your flow with your CRM, with Sales Navigator, make sure that you are saving as a lead in Sales Navigator your executive, if you haven't done that already, and anyone else she might have mentioned in that meeting, so that you can be prompted with information that can give you a valid reason for reaching out in the future. Those little tidbits of information that Sales Navigator can feed you can sometimes be the difference between a thoughtful follow-up and not having any good reason at all to follow up. Last, keep your exec up to date on the progress of what you and she discussed. This is really important, and this is a step that's very often skipped by reps. Most folks send a nice thank you email afterwards, but when it gets to days and weeks and sometimes months after that initial meeting, sometimes the communication can stop. What I recommend doing here is being better than everyone else by doing exactly what you say. You said you're going to follow up, you're going to keep her in the loop, do so. I think it really reinforces three important things. The first is, it literally just keeps her up to date on the progress of your project. That's important because you're going to need her sponsorship. The second is, it reinforces subtly that you are a person who does what you say you're going to do. You told her you'd follow up and keep her up to date. Now you're doing it. And third is, it keeps you top of mind. So there's a little reminder for her every once in a while, because remember, her day's busy, she's working on other things, but by your follow-up periodically, she's keeping your solution and you personally on her mind, and those are all positive things for your forward progress. I hope these examples of what you might want to do in engaging with an executive have been helpful. What I found in my life, and unfortunately mostly through trial and error, is when you have a successfully engaged executive at your prospect, everything becomes easier for you. I used to bang my head against the wall trying to move through an organization without ever really taking the time to adequately engage a senior executive from my prospect organization. Once I learned how to do that and applied some of these principles, my life got much easier, and frankly, it was just a lot more fun. It's interesting and engaging to meet some of these people who are leading the world's most interesting companies. Take this opportunity to get the most out of your role, not just to tactically sell your solution and move your business forward, but to expand your relationships, to build on your network, and to build on your understanding of how the world works. So best of luck on applying these principles, and remember, you can do this. You have worked your whole life on a profession to get you to this point. You're going to nail this. You're worthy of that executive's time, and you have a lot of value to add. I can't wait to see what you do with it.